So I have just heard the news, or maybe it's just a rumor, that what is it? Fox is opting for a third Fantastic Four reboot, which is exhausting. It's exhausting news. I heard this on redlettermedia.com. I was just watching their Deadpool Half in the Bag review. And if you haven't checked out Half in the Bag, you should, because it's really cool. But I am so sick to death of Fantastic Four movies because whoever's making these movies never really seems to get it right. And it's like a very simplistic idea, and it just seems like nobody's sat these people down and just explained to them what the Fantastic Four is. But what on Red Letter Media they were talking about is that there's going to be a third Fantastic Four reboot, and it's going to be rated R. Because Deadpool was so successful, and because Deadpool was rated R, we might be seeing an oncoming onslaught of rated R superhero movies, which is also exhausting news. Deadpool deserves an R rating, and I talked about this before, and I'm not going to go much into Deadpool again, but Fantastic Four does not need the R rating. I've said this before, and I've said it again. I think that the best Fantastic Four movie out there is The Incredibles. Because it's essentially the same team dynamic. I mean, and it's not even that. Like, the powers are obvious. Like, you know, they have an invisible girl, they have a person who can stretch, they have a kid who has, you know, a baby with unknown powers, and a strong guy. And I feel like the people who are writing Incredibles were like, we have to give Dash something else other than fire, or people are going to call us out on making a Fantastic Four movie with our own characters. But I think, but not just the power set. It's not just the power set. It's the fact that they're a family. And that's the core concept of Fantastic Four that the people who are making these movies can't really seem to grasp. The fact that it's a family flick. It's a family picture. It's supposed to be like Venture Brothers. I feel like captures Fantastic Four better than the movies do. Incredibles, but like things like that, like things like Incredibles and Venture Brothers, where they go on these crazy, almost cliched adventures, but at the end of the day, they're still a family. Whereas Venture Brothers is like a dysfunctional family. Incredibles was a very, very loving family. Like, they're working together, but not as a team. Like that's a lot of things. Like, Avengers is a team. X-Men is a team. Fantastic Four is not a team. Fantastic Four is a superhero family. And that's important. They were Marvel's first family. And that's what makes them kind of engaging, is not just the fact that, it's like, I'm trying to think of how to explain this. In The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay by Michael Chabon, and if no one's read that, you should, because it's great. And in The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay, it's about these two Jewish guys who are writing comic books in the 40s. And at one point, they're listing off comic book characters. And they say, what about a guy who has claws coming out of his hands? No, they're doing that. What about a guy who can light on fire? Oh, they got that. What about a guy who can breathe underwater? There's another guy like that. And one of the characters says, it doesn't matter what he does. And the other guy is like, it's not? And he goes, no, it doesn't matter what he does. It matters why he does it. This is extremely true of the Fantastic Four. Excuse me, I have to flip my coals. This is extremely true of the Fantastic Four. Because why they do it is because they're all together. They're all in this together. They all have these powers, and they feel connected to one another. You know, like Ben is Reed's best friend. Johnny and Sue are brother and sister. Johnny and Ben have this adorable little, like, almost sibling rivalry, and then Reed and Sue are married to each other. And even though the team through the years have had their differences and people have left and people have come on, the core of the Fantastic Four is that they're a family. And a loving family. It's like why they started the Future Foundation. It's like a daycare for superhero kids. And that's so adorable. And it's a really interesting dynamic. And the Fantastic Four movies don't capture that at all. I mean, it's been a while since I've seen any of them, and I'm not going to rewatch them. And there's a lot of problems. Like the first Fantastic Four movie, I didn't get the feeling that they were a family. And I feel like the casting was really wrong. Like, I don't remember who played Ben Grimm, and I doubt anyone does. But I remember I liked him a lot. I really liked the guy who played Ben Grimm. I thought he did a good job. And then Chris Evans wasn't, he wasn't the worst Human Torch. I think he makes a much better Captain America, but, you know, he's not the worst Human Torch. But Reed Richards is boring, and Jessica Alba was like, do you really think she was the right choice for Sue Storm? They chose Jessica Alba because she was popular at the time, and because she was hot, and they even made a joke about her getting naked, and it's just like, oh great, let's objectify Sue Storm even further. That was another thing I wanted to talk about. It was how Sue Storm is still getting a bad rap. I feel like Sue Storm... I just read Secret Wars, by the way, and nothing good ever comes out of Secret Wars. Nothing. And Sue Storm was no exception. The entire comic, she was just, like... Okay, like, really quick. So Sue Storm, not to get off topic, but she had this, like, her only purpose was to, like, lounge on Doctor Doom, like the cover of a 1970s fantasy book, and also to look surprised. She's always like, boo! Oh my god, Reed Richards, who's that? Like, it's so... I hate her in that comic. I hate Secret Wars. I didn't like it, and I might do a video about it, because I really didn't like it. Because it was... I think I said this in a previous video. Silver Surfer is like... There's this recent Silver Surfer comic where he's zooming around and he's trying to find the Avengers Mansion and the Baxter Building, and they've all been replaced. And he says, hey, remember how the universe got put back together after Secret Wars? And Dawn goes, yeah. He says, I think someone put it back together wrong. And I'm like, wow, no shit. But that's just my opinion. I don't like Secret Wars, and I don't like the ending, and I didn't like the middle or the beginning. And the artist was, like... not bad, but he really liked this expression. Everyone has that expression, just like, oh! It's really dumb. I hate it. Anyways, sorry, getting off topic. So, the first Fantastic Four movie. I mean, yeah, it was bad, but I think it was bad because it was boring. Like in the comic books, they're always going somewhere. They're on the pogo plane. They're going to an island. What's on the island? A giant robot. Why is there a giant robot? Who knows? Whoa, Dr. Doom's in the giant robot? Why? Because he's trying to steal vibranium from Wakanda. There's Black Panther. Whoa! Like, it's like this crazy, stupid, cliched adventure, like with giant robots and dinosaurs, and it's like an episode of Johnny Quest, and that's why the Fantastic Four is kind of great, in my opinion. But the original Fantastic Four movie, what did they do? They hung around New York. They didn't even go to Latveria, that I remember. It was dumb. It was bad. Nothing happened. Add an alien invasion, or dinosaurs coming out of a portal, or, like, I don't know, people becoming two-dimensional creatures, or something stupid, like something you would expect from, like, a Hostess Fruit Pie comic from, like, I don't know if people remember those. Hostess Fruit Pie used to do these little one-page comics in, like, Marvel and DC, where like, it would be a group of superheroes, and it would be like a supervillain, and it would always be like the worst supervillain ever, like one that they just made up. Like, there was one guy called the Chairman who had the ability to turn people into chairs, and that was his only power. And at the end of the comics, Spider-Man foils him with Twinkies, Hostess Fruitcakes, or Twinkies, or Ding Dongs, or something. Anyways, they were really dumb. But that's what the Fantastic Four movie should have been like this kind of dumb plot where, like, you know, at the end, they beat the villain not because they're a team, but because they're a family. and because they love each other. But the chemistry was just all wrong between the actors. The casting was terrible. So, bad casting aside, just didn't do anything. Doctor Doom attacked, and they got Doctor Doom's powers right, I guess. Well, they got the technology side down, but they never addressed the magic. And Doctor Doom's powers have always been kind of ambiguous. Doctor Doom's not about so there's a lot of superheroes where you're you kind of ask, off the bat, what's their power? Like, Miss Marvel. Oh, she can stretch, and she has a healing factor. Deadpool. He has a healing factor, and he can break the fourth wall. Wolverine. He has claws and a healing factor. A lot of people have healing factors, but I don't know. But, But Doctor Doom was never one of those people for me where you ask, what's his power? It doesn't matter what his power is. He's fucking Doctor Doom. He's, the coolest. I love him. He's just so cool. He's so great. And the actor was so wrong. I don't know who I would cast as Doctor Doom, but, the guy who plays Doctor Doom should be just completely full of himself. Doctor Doom stood up to God, Doctor Doom, that happened in the comic books. He met God and he, stood up to him. Because he doesn't take shit from anyone. He's Dr. fucking Doom. He knows exactly what he's about. He has kind of convenient powers. Whatever the plot needs him to do, he can do. Because he's a super genius, and he has all this money and a whole country, and all these robots, and he's just ridiculously awesome. I feel like if you're watching a Fantastic Four movie, whenever Dr. Doom is on the screen, your eyes should be drawn to Dr. Doom. This guy didn't do that for me. I don't even remember who he was. I don't remember anything about the Fantastic Four movie. I tried to block it out of my memory. I remember the sequel, though. Rise of the Silver Surfer. Again, in a better direction, because at least something happened in that movie. Again, I don't think they ever left New York. There was one scene in Latveria. But it was the first Fantastic Four movie boiled down to the Fantastic Four just kind of all attacking Doctor Doom at once. The second Fantastic Four movie boiled down to them all attacking Doctor Doom at once, and also trying to attack Galactus. And it was just it's the same thing. And in the reboot, and I'll get to that eventually, but it's also the same thing. Just attack Doctor Doom. Why do they keep using Doctor Doom? The Fantastic Four has so many supervillains besides Doctor Doom. They've got the Mole Man, Molecule Man, fucking Maximus the Mad would have been awesome. The Inhumans and all that. I guess I can't use the Inhumans, but whatever. Maximus the Mad. I'm gonna make myself look really stupid if I can't think of another one. They had other villains, okay? Just trust me. The Frightful Four! That would have been awesome! The Wizard, Paste Pot Pete. Sorry. Okay, if they put Paste Pot Pete in the movie, maybe that wouldn't have been so cool, but I would have appreciated it. I guess they couldn't use Sandman either. Who would they use? What version of the Frightful Four would they use? You should leave that in the comments if you can think of one. What's your ideal version of the Frightful Four? Also, I guess they couldn't use Medusa. Maybe they can? I don't know. Maybe they can use her if they don't call her an Inhuman? I don't get this. That reminds me of something else. One time, I was on Tumblr. Hold on, sorry. I saw this post that was talking about the Marvel movies and how it was a flowchart of all the different people who owned what Marvel character, and Marvel owned the majority of their characters, but there was the X-Men went to Fox, Fantastic Four went to Fox, Sony got Spider-Man. Apparently Universal owns Namor, but they've never done anything with him? I don't get that. That's weird. But at the bottom of the post it said, say what you want about DC movies, at least they own all their characters. I'm like, yeah, and they do nothing with them. But I'm not saying anything against DC Comics. I just don't like DC movies all that much. Yeah, no. The DC TV shows are pretty cool. Like, The Flash is great. I've been watching that recently. Yeah, Flash is really fun, actually. I just wish they had chosen Wally West instead of Barry Allen, because I don't like Barry Allen. Whatever, fuck it. So the point is... I'm getting so sidetracked. So Fantastic Four 2 was the Silver Surfer one. So they covered a lot in that movie, and it was a little busy, honestly. Like, there was the marriage of Reed and Sue, which, again, was kind of sweet if we cared about the characters. But, again, chemistry was just wrong between what's-his-name and Jessica Alba. I just, you know, you don't feel that they're in love. You just feel like they're going through the motions. They're not really getting into it. And whoever directed that should, you know... There should have been better casting, there should have been better directing, there should have been better everything. And not to mention that Galactus was a fucking cloud! Like, it's like the same problem with the Green Lantern movie. They made Parallax a giant yellow cloud. Why? Parallax has a form. He looks like a giant yellow centipede. And, yeah, I mean, like... Yeah, in comic books that looks fine, but in movies that might look a little goofy. Well, then fix it. Don't just make him look like a giant cloud and call it a day. Like, are clouds easier to animate? Is that why Galactus was a giant purple cloud? That's so dumb. A cloud? He didn't even have a speaking line! Like, it's Galactus! He's a fully established character, and like... Again, maybe they thought, well, it would look goofy with a big guy in a giant purple skirt. Well, then make it look not goofy. This is your job. You know? Like, Christ. Like, jeez, Crow, Fantastic Four movie guys. Get it together. That sentence could have gone a lot better, but anyways. Giant Galactus cloud aside, just, it boiled down to people hitting each other again. Which was... boring. Excuse me. It was really boring. It was just so boring. And then their reboot. I saw the reboot. And I did not like the reboot. And again, it was boring, but it was less boring. So I think the first half of the movie worked really, really well. I heard someone describe it. It was actually Steve Lacy of the Fantasticast. Great podcast about Fantastic Four. Check out the Fantasticast. It's such a good podcast. But it was... He described the movie being separated into two parts. There was the first half of the movie, which was the origin story, and then it said 7 years later, and that was the rest of the movie. That was the second half. And that's where everything starts to go to shit. And that's what he said, and I agree. Because the first half of that movie, you actually start to kind of feel for these characters. Between Ben Grimm and Reed Richards, you actually... The chemistry is a little bit better. You actually do feel a little bit more of camaraderie. Like, you know, they joke, they laugh, they kind of have this bond. You know, you start to believe that they're actually best friends. But as for Sue and Johnny, they were distant. They didn't feel like brother and sister at all. Johnny seemed like he just didn't give a shit and really didn't want to be in the movie. And I've also heard... So, like, real quick, I want to say this up front so I don't have to address it again. Who the fuck cares if Johnny Storm is black? Who the fuck cares? It makes no difference. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Okay, moving on. So Johnny and Sue, again, no chemistry. And Reed and Sue, I didn't feel that either. I felt like the actors weren't great, because most of them, I guess the direction they were given was go for stoic. Or at least that's what it feels like Sue was. And, oh man, I hate that line where she says, like, her thing is she's like, I'm good at recognizing patterns. I'm like, sweetheart, everyone's good at recognizing patterns. If you're a scientist, you would recognize that. Like, if she was really a scientist, she wouldn't say something that stupid. I'm sorry. Humans are good at recognizing patterns. Every human on Earth, you're good at recognizing patterns. Chimps are good at recognizing patterns. It's nothing special that Sue Storm can recognize patterns. It was weird. I don't know why they added that. I find it a shame that a character like Sue Storm, it seems like people suffer from like people see Sue Storm, writers, and they say like, what do we do with her? We have to give her something to do. Why is it so hard to give Sue Storm something to do? She is arguably the most powerful member on the entire Fantastic Four team. Like, she has effectively telekinesis. That's really, really useful. It should not be hard to find her work. So, yes. They changed up the origin story, where instead of going into space, they went into the negative zone. The negative zone looked kinda dull, because it was just a desert with lots of flashing lights. To be fair, the negative zone in the comic books is not very well described. Like, it's always kind of a barren wasteland. And, like, that's a thing. I get that. That's fine. But, I mean, Jack Kirby, he drew the negative zone in such a way. And it was just, like, Google Jack Kirby negative zone, because it's so beautiful. It's so elaborate. And, like, the sky is always full of these, like, big, cosmic, weird, swirly things. And it's, like, it's just, like, this strange energy just emanates off the page. And it's so great. The negative zone in the Fantastic Four reboot looked like the set to a bad 1950s sci-fi movie. Which, again, that might help the Fantastic Four. Like I said, cliche adventures. All we have to do now is make them a family, which the movie failed spectacularly. Because, again, you just got to get the chemistry right. It's all in casting. I really do think that. I think it's all in casting. And I think there's a movie, an actual Fantastic Four movie, not just The Incredibles, that came close to that. But I'm saving that for the very end. And you might be thinking to yourself, what? 4 Fantastic Four movies? But Harry, there's only 3. My name's Harry, by the way. I don't think I've ever established that. But Harry, there's only 3. Well, you're wrong. There are 4. And I'll get to that. Anyway, so, like, I don't know. So the first half of the movie was pretty good. And I liked how we saw the aftermath of their getting them their powers. They're all kind of confused and angry, and I like that. And Reed runs away. And I liked that too. It was very human. Like, he knew that he was responsible for this, and he just couldn't face it at the time, and he was like, I'll come back later when I can face this. And I liked that. It was a human moment. And then the second half of the movie, where Doctor Doom effectively... Okay, so Doctor Doom effectively has the power to kill everyone with a thought. Superman has this problem too. And this is the problem with making overly powered super characters. Is, like, so their version of Doctor Doom could just kill everyone without even thinking about it. And then later he had to fight the Fantastic Four, and for some reason the Fantastic Four posed a threat. Why? That's the question. If he could do all this stuff, and that's another thing about Secret Wars. Okay, I just gotta say this real fast. Doctor Doom was omniscient in that one. So why didn't, every time he ran across opposition, like when he was fighting Black Panther, why didn't he just snap his fingers and make Black Panther suddenly not exist? Okay, I gotta do a video about Secret Wars so I can talk about this more at length. But this is a Fantastic Four. So he could, like, kill all these people, which, like, again, that's not Doctor Doom's power. They gave him, like, a specific power, and it's like, well, I mean, I don't know. And also, Doctor Doom was kind of boring, again. He just wasn't very interesting. I liked his costume. Does that count for anything? But when he fought the Fantastic Four, he couldn't kill them. And it's like, why? You killed everyone else with, like, you didn't even have to lift your hand. You just killed them, and now the Fantastic Four pose a threat. Why? Like that makes no sense, and it's just stupid. Like, the writers really wrote themselves into a corner, and nobody stopped them and said, hey, this doesn't work. And they should have. So, but the end of the film boiled down to the Fantastic Four all attacking one at a time. And they're all like, our powers are working on our own. And then Reed Richards, because he's a brilliant scientist, remember, says, what if we all attack him at the same time? Wah! Like that's the resolution? Nobody thought of that? Like, why did they all take turns attacking Doctor Doom? It's really, really dumb. It's bad writing. So I think the problem with the Fantastic Four movies is casting and writing. If you fix those, you might have a good movie. Also, I didn't like the ending where Ben Grimm is looking at their new Baxter building and he goes, oh, it's fantastic. And Reed Richards goes, wait, say that again. And I'm like, fuck you, movie. Like, fuck you. And he's, oh man, it was so dumb. So, there is a fourth Fantastic Four movie, and I think this one comes a little bit closer. It comes as closer than any of the other ones. And it's the Roger Corman Fantastic Four movie. Here's a little history. Roger Corman was a director from the 50s and 60s who was notorious for being able to make movies fast. Bad movies fast. He allegedly filmed an entire movie in a week. I believe it was called The Terror with Boris Karloff. Because, so he had Boris Karloff and Peter Lorre and Jack Nicholson for a month. Like their contract was like for a month or something. And they just finished filming an Edgar Allan Poe adaptation, but he still had like a week left in their contracts. So he said, I'll just make another movie. And he made a movie in a week, and they all improv the lines, and it's the worst movie ever. He also made It Conquered the World, the original Little Shop of Horrors, just all these really bad movies. But his thing was that he could make movies really quickly, really cheaply. So, flashback to when a German film company bought the rights to the Fantastic Four. Why did they do this? I don't know. But the point is, they did this, and in order to keep the rights, they had to make a movie. They didn't have to distribute it, but they did have to make it. So they hired Roger Corman, who they had heard about, who could make movies, and they just told him, make this movie as fast and cheaply as you can. And Roger Corman's like, you got it! So he made a Fantastic Four movie. That was never supposed to be released, but it did. And it's on YouTube right now, and you need to watch this movie. It's so bad, but it's so good. Like, it's a bad movie. Don't get me wrong, it's bad. It's really, really bad. The special effects are crap. There's this whole scene, there's a fight scene where Ben Grimm is about to fight all these dudes, and they cut away, and they just cut back, and all the dudes are knocked over. Like, they were too cheap for fight scenes. But it's so heartwarming. It's so endearing. Like, the actors, you can tell that they're trying. They are trying so hard to make this the best movie they can. And the effects are all terrible. But there's like little things where like the Thing costume looks weird, like his head's way too big and his arms are way too small, but he still doesn't look that bad for what you would expect, you know? Doctor Doom looks perfect. And Doctor Doom is just as goofy and like dramatic that he should be, and he's perfect in that movie. I think that's like my ideal Doctor Doom. He's so perfect. There's this one part, I'm gonna spoil this. There's this one part where he says, you have 10 hours to comply. But he's on a little vid screen, and he does this. He goes, you have 10 hours to comply. Ha 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 ha. And it's like, what? Why did he spell it out for himself. And he didn't spell it, like, he spelled it out like that, like, for himself on the vid screen. And it was so goofy. It was so, like, the actor who played Doctor Doom did a lot of things with his hands. He was very into body language because they never really dubbed over his lines properly. So his lines are kind of hard to hear. Well, like, some of them are dubbed over, some of them aren't, but you can't really hear him that well through the mask, so a lot of his... and you can't see his face, because it's hidden behind the big mask, so he does a lot of body language, and he's got really fantastic Doctor Doom body language, just really perfect. But I honestly think the chemistry between those four people worked. I think it worked. I think... sorry. I think I could believe I think I could believe that they were a family. I really could. Like, they looked like they had fun on the set of the movie. Like, even if they knew it wasn't going to be that good, they looked like they had fun. And they looked like they were getting along. And that's what the Fantastic Four should be. It's not just saving the world, it's having fun. It's a family. It's like, it's not just saving the world from Galactus or Mole Man or Doctor Doom. It's a family outing, you know? And it's like, that's kind of how sweet it should be. It's a sweet, endearing little film. It's the little film that couldn't, you know? And I'll say this, it's way better than the 90s Captain America movie, which is so fucking stupid. I love that movie. Just because it's so bad. But that one's just stupid. It's really stupid. Yeah. So, those are my thoughts on the four Fantastic Four movies. So yeah, let me know what you thought of this video. Please share it with your friends. Please like, comment, subscribe, do the things. Let me know if you like these videos. I plan on making more. Come to me for your #1 source of comic book knowledge. I should have like a tagline, like, this is the Masked Nerd, your friendly neighborhood comic book expert, signing out. I'll work on that tagline, but anyways, thanks for listening. Bye!